Hi, dear friends. Some words of Torah for Parshat Chukas-Balak. People are what we perceive them to be. The Baal Shem Tov noted that each person's face is a mirror. Whatever you see in the other is really a reflection of what you see in yourself. If you see goodness and kindness, then there's a good chance that you are good and kind. If you see meanness, pettiness, and haughtiness within the other, there's a possibility at least that you've picked up on those traits because they are all too recognizable in yourself. As we'll see, this is one of the salient lessons from our Torah reading. This Shabbos, we catch up. Since Shavuot, we've been one parsha behind the Torah reading here in the diaspora behind Eretz Yisrael. In Israel, they read only Parshat Balak, whereas in Chutz La'aretz, we read Chukat and Balak together. This double parsha combo actually happens quite often. Is there anything that binds these two parshiot together? At face value, there doesn't seem to be any connection between Parshat Chukat, which focuses on the story of Mei Merivah, the story of strife over the miraculous Miriam's well drying up, and the subsequent stories of the Jews last year in the desert, and, on the other hand, Parshat Balak, which is about a specific narrative of Bilam and his curses which turned into blessings. But let's see if there's something deeper that connects the two. There are some details to the Bilam story that are seemingly irrelevant to the reader. For instance, the Torah tells us specifically where King Balak led Bilam to get a glimpse of the Jewish people. The first time, Balak took Bilam to a high place called Bamot Baal, literally the high places of Baal, the name of an idolatry, an apparently high point where he could see a portion of the Jewish camp. Bilam's intended curse came out as a blessing, so Balak, in the hope of achieving a different outcome, took Bilam to another place, this time called Sedeit Sofim El Rosh HaPiskah, literally the field of gazers that was atop an outlook. After again seeing the same result of Bilam blessing the Jews, Balak tried one last time, taking Bilam to a third place called Rosh HaPeor HaNishkaf Al Pnei HaYeshimon, literally the head of Peor, also an idolatry, which overlooked the face of the wilderness. Here too, Bilam's curses were converted into blessings. Now, why are the names of these three vistas enumerated? Why are their names at all significant? It appears from Rashi and others that Balak was aware that these three places portended a negative future for the Jewish people, either because they had been places of idol worship or because the Jews would eventually sin there. The names themselves allude to this spiritual weakness. You see, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot states that Bilam embodied three negative character traits that every Jew should avoid. Number one, ayin ra'ah, someone who begrudges others' success in viewing that person with jealousy and contempt. Number two, ruach gavoa, someone who is vain, haughty, and has an overinflated self-image. And number three, nefesh rechava, someone who has a ravenous appetite for the pleasures of this world. According to Rabbi Meir Todra Zilber, Bilam embodied the Talmudic teaching of kol haposel b'mumo posel. He who possesses a character flaw finds that very same defect in others. Bilam saw his own defects within the Jewish people and wished to exploit their perceived weaknesses accordingly. He first went to Bamot Baal, a high lookout station, to correspond to his bias that the Jews were a haughty people. It is no coincidence that the blessing he recited included the words, Mi mana afar Yaakov, who can count the dust of Jacob, implying that the Jews' self-image was closer to dust than anything haughty or self-inflated, repudiating that accusation. Next, he went to Sedeit Sofim, a place for gazing, because Bilam believed the Jews possessed an ayin hara and looked with contempt at others. Instead, he was forced to bless them as the people about whom it says, Lo hibit aven b'Yaakov. God sees no iniquity in Jacob. Hashem gazes favorably on Bnei Yisrael, specifically because their gaze is positive toward others. Finally, Bilam went to Rosh HaPeor, the place where the Jewish men would eventually sin with Midianite women, as recorded at the end of the Parsha. For Bilam, this epitomized the Jews' propensity toward physical overindulgence, but he was nonetheless forced to bless them right afterwards in saying the words, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, how goodly are your tents, Jacob, referring, according to the Talmud, to the modest behavior of Jewish families. So let's go back to our first question. What's the connection to Parshat Chukat? After the Jews succeeded in regaining water from the miraculous Miriam's well, the Torah records a song that they sang in appreciation for this life-giving gift of water. Az Yashir Yisrael, thus did the Jews sing, about the great gift of water, which according to the sages isn't just a song about the gift of water in the desert, but is also a song about the Torah, which is compared to life-sustaining water. After describing all the positive effects of water and Torah, the last line of the song states, Umi bamot Hagai asher bistei Moav rosh hapiska v'nishkafa al penei hayishimon. From Bamot, the valley that is the field of Moav, at the peak of Pisgah, overlooking the wasteland. If one reads that verse carefully, one will note that the three places where Bilam attempted to curse the Jews are really being foreshadowed in that verse. Bamot refers to Bamot Baal. Rosh HaPisgah refers to Sedei Tzofim El Rosh HaPisgah, the outlook for gazers. And Penei HaYeshimon is the third outlook, Rosh HaPo'or HaNishkaf Al Penei HaYeshimon, facing the wilderness. This song is conveying the dual benefit of the Torah upon the Jew. Firstly, the Torah is an elixir of life and provides the richness of meaning and purpose to everything a person does. But there's another benefit to the Torah contained in that last line of the song, which is that it acts as a refinery. People who conscientiously observe the mitzvot and study the Torah invariably are affected in a positive way by it. Some may have been previously self-centered, jealous, and greedy, but they are able to overcome those personality obstacles by internalizing the lessons of the Torah. We are able to eradicate the Bilam within through the gift of the Torah. The song thus acts as a foreshadowing to the events of Parshat Balak, where Bilam tried to exploit what he perceived to be our weaknesses, only to discover that he was merely seeing in the Jewish people a negative reflection of himself. Living a life of Torah does not guarantee that we'll succeed in eradicating the negative within ourselves. We know too many people, unfortunately, who are religious, but have not internalized the Torah sufficiently to allow it to work its magic and have a transformative effect. Nonetheless, there's no question that overall we are a people of great sensitivity and kindness due to whatever extent we have collectively internalized the Torah's teachings. I am not aware of a single non-Jewish community that takes care of its poor and sick to the extent that we do in the Jewish community. Just one small example of Mi Ka'amcha Yisrael, of just how uniquely caring we are. Over Pesach, an entire Jewish community in Montreal was without power, and the Chaverim organization from Rockland County sent up a whole truckload of generators to ensure that people would not suffer from the cold. We have much to be grateful for. But above all, we should be grateful for the Torah that has prevented us from becoming like Bilam. We should take pride in that uniqueness while at the same time recognizing that it's not an automatic gift, but rather something that will come to those who work on internalizing the Torah's messages. There is a Bilam inside each and every one of us, replete with jealousy, ego, and hunger. As we continue our journey to the Promised Land, let's make sure that the curses of our internal Bilam are converted into the blessings of having a good eye, a humble spirit, and an outlook of satisfaction for what we have. This is the way to achieve redemption, dear friends. May we see it b'mheira b'yameinu. Amen. Here's wishing you an amazing Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom.